Welcome to Natural Habitat Adventures Daily Dose of Nature. Today's presentation, Beyond the Ice, Travel Lessons from Antarctica, is brought to you by NatHab Expedition Leader Maru Marcias. Maru is a biologist from Buenos Aires who completed her master's research in Mexico, studying whether whale encounters increase human environmental consciousness, leading her to specialize in science communication and marine conservation. She worked with the Whale Conservation Institute and transitioned from research to becoming a naturalist guide, leading snorkeling and diving adventures in Baja while developing expertise in underwater photography of marine life like nudibranches and bleninis. Excuse me. In 2024, Maria joined NatHab as an expedition leader specializing in gray whale adventures, combining her biology background with science communication skills and extensive diving experience. You have quite the background, Maru. Well, welcome. Glad you're here today. Take it away.
Thank you, Rob. Well, let's just get started with it. Today's presentation is Beyond the Ice, Travel Lessons from Antarctica. And I kind of wasn't expecting that presentation, which kind of summarizes my experience. So I just want to say, to add to that, is that because of my Argentinian nationality, I've been lucky enough to be in Antarctica 3 times, 3 different seasons, one in my bachelor thesis in an Argentinian scientific base for a whole month, and then with a project researching the whales of the Southern Ocean in a total of 2 seasons, 78 days on board different vessels, and 5 different trips, I guess. So from that is what I'm going to try to talk about Antarctica. And yes, as Rob already mentioned, I've been living in Mexico for the past 7 years. I came to do my master in marine science, and I started doing the last 5 years working in tourism. So I do have a mix of background that can help us to think about the travel lessons that Antarctica is going to bring us. So before we get into what I want to share to you today, I would like you to tell me, what is Antarctica to you? How can you describe it in one word, or what does it come to your mind when you think about Antarctica?
And go ahead, folks, go to the question field in your control panel. It's in the upper right-hand corner. Just click on those 3 lines. It'll pop down all the fields, go to questions, and give us your answer right there. We've got forsaken, big, abundant, white, penguins, ice, the last frontier, exciting, peaceful, amazing, awesome, wildlife, cold and icy. I like this one. Nuts, pristine, icebergs, cold, mysterious, remote, stupendous scenes, peaceful.
Nice. Okay. Thank you for that. Well, apparently it's a lot of things for different people, and for me it was kind of hard to get the courage to talk about it, even though I realized while preparing this webinar, that I have over 100 days in Antarctica. For me, it's such a special place. It's so unique. It's so remarkable that, oh my God, it's such an honor, but also such a big foot to wear to be talking about Antarctica. So let's go to try to talk about what is Antarctica and what is not Antarctica. First, of course, we need to talk about the poles, and we need to talk about the main difference between Antarctica and the Arctic, right? So, of course, it's, even though both are on high latitudes, both are on the poles, they're totally different. Antarctica is a continent that is surrounded by ocean, whereas the Arctic is an ocean surrounded by continents, right? And you do have ice, but that ice is floating on the ocean, whereas here the ice is on the landmass, right? So what we have in Antarctica is a thick ice sheet that is over the land, and of course it's going to fluctuate during the seasons, the same as in the Arctic. But in the Arctic, we don't have a solid landmass, as I already said. Both poles have a cold, a hard environment, but we can say that the Arctic, it's a little bit milder, although I haven't been in the Arctic, so I cannot really fully compare. But from the experiences that other colleagues have told me, it appears that in the Antarctica, you can almost predict that every 2 weeks or less, you're going to have bad weather coming in. It's kind of like a constant that something is going to come, and it's related with the winds and the currents that we have over there. We do have more vegetation in the Arctic. There's almost no vegetation in the Antarctic, only 2 or a few species of plants that can survive in the Antarctica. We don't have any land mammals. We do have marine mammals or seabirds that live on the Antarctic, but no land mammals. Whereas, of course, in the Arctic, you have the polar bears, the foxes, the caribous, different species that have arrived in a way to the Arctic, whereas here it's so isolated from millions of years ago that we don't have any land mammals. Both of them thrive with marine life, but it's a little different. This is something that, of course, the audience here already knows, but we don't have polar bears in the Antarctic. We have penguins, and we don't have penguins in the Arctic, right? So there are species of seals, species of whales, but different species, of course, and yes, a different type of marine megafauna. Another thing is that in the Antarctic, there is no native population, although we will get to that because I want to talk about kind of an exception, but I'll tell you later. We only have research stations. And then we have, in the Arctic, there are people that live there. We have different indigenous people like the Inuits, Samis, Nenets, and so on. And so another thing in the Antarctic is that it's governed by no country. It's governed by an Antarctic Treaty. It belongs to no nation, whereas the Arctic is actually managed by 8 different nations: Canada, US, Russia, Norway, Denmark. All of these that have a little piece of their land close to the pole are the ones that are going to be managing. And what is this management? There is use of resources, there is shipping, fishing, oil and gas exploitation, whereas in the Antarctica there is a treaty that prevents it from exploitation, but we're also going to tackle a little bit this, okay? So as some of you already mentioned, this place is cold. It can go up to minus 112 Fahrenheit, much colder than the Arctic. It's actually, when it's the first thing that you Google for Antarctica, is it's the coldest, driest, and windiest place in the world. It's also one of the highest. It has the highest average elevation, which it has to do with the geological formation of the Antarctica, but it actually has a lot of mountain ranges. And of course, because of this extreme environment, it's hard for life. Only very specific and specially adapted species will survive here. And because of this extreme that we have here, it has fascinated us since humankind has a history, right? There was this heroic era of explorers that wanted to reach the South Pole. And this one is one that I really like, that we saw on one of the presentations, the lectures that they give during these tourism vessels that go to Antarctica, where Shackleton is asking for men for a hazardous journey, small wages, bitter cold, long months of complete darkness, constant danger, safe return doubtful, honor and recognition in case of success. I think it's quite interesting, this thing that was on the newspaper for asking for crew for this transantarctic imperial expedition. But actually, if you think about today's travelers, even though we don't go in the winter, like they go during the spring and summer, it's still interesting to me and to a lot of people. Why would someone go to a place that's super cold, that has bad weather sometimes? It's not a trip, a holiday to the Caribbean, let's say. So you do have to have this explorer kind of mindset, right? And of course, the technology is helping us to be the safest as possible and an amazing experience. But you are going to experience some discomfort. You have to be ready for some changes, at least in the weather, right? So here I'm showing some screenshots of my cell phone during the 2022 season when we were crossing the Drake Passage, the famous Drake Passage. Here you can see that sometimes I don't remember how many times we crossed it, because I'm going to explain how our research was done, but basically we were doing legs of trips of tourism vessels, but we were doing research to try to count the amount of whales that we saw on the way. And because of that, we were coming and going from the Western Peninsula, and every now and then I had a bad drake, what they call. So you can cross it safely, but not necessarily, in my experience, without some seasickness, right? So it's a very special place. It's not for everyone, but it's so magical and so interesting, right? With all of this that it has. So talking a little bit about what it makes it so special, besides the extreme environment, right? It also has this Southern Ocean that thrives with productivity, you know. This is actually acting as an oceanographic barrier that prevents mixing of waters between the subantarctic waters and the Antarctic waters. And also, this is one of the strongest currents that exists in the world, and it's actually the one that initiates what we call the conveyor belt. So it goes from here is where it starts all the other currents that are going to be in the ocean. So it's quite a special ocean that we have here, and quite a special current that just surrounds the whole continent. It brings nutrients to the surface because of these westerly winds that I was mentioning. These winds are the ones that are going to bring the dense salty water from the bottom to the top, enhancing productivity, and because of that, it's going to thrive with marine life, right? So as I already said, the Antarctic circumpolar current is south of the 60 degrees latitude line. I don't remember the word, but the line. And it generates also not only geographic isolation, a geobiological barrier, as I already said, and a thermal isolation as well. So it makes that the life that lives here has to be very, very specialized to these conditions. For me, this is easier to explain with whales. So what I want to show is an example of course, the plankton and the krill that we're going to talk a little bit about later that makes it so special. It's surrounded by this current and cannot go further out, right? But of course, there are some megafauna that can migrate to here. So if you see here, I really like this type of maps, which are stereographic polar maps that actually show you the size of this continent compared to other continents. This is the one that we are almost always used to see. That is the Mercator projection, and it's just like extends so much, and it's just not an accurate representation of the poles, right? The poles are not shown correctly because it's centered on the areas that we're more used to seeing, right? So in this, you can see that actually the Southern Ocean is connected to the other oceans, right? It's connected to the Atlantic, to the Pacific, and to the Indian Ocean. And because of that, you can see that all the populations, the Southern Hemisphere populations of whales, that during the winter are going to be in their breeding grounds, when it comes the summer, when it comes the spring, they are going to migrate to higher latitudes. They are going to migrate to Antarctica for their feeding time of the year, for the feeding grounds. So this happens with humpbacks, this happens with blues, this happens with all of the baleen whales that migrate to the Southern Ocean. And so it's a special place because of historical human history of conquering this place. It's a special place because of the isolation, because of the extreme weather. It's also special because it's so fragile. One of the things is that the Antarctic food web is one of the most fragile ecosystems that we have. As I already said, it's very specialized. And also what we have is a short food chain. All the food chains are based on this amazing creature, which is krill. And if you see here, it starts with plankton and then goes to krill, and then it ends in the baleen whales, or it goes from plankton to krill and it ends in seabirds. So what this means is that we only have food chains that it has three levels. It's very short food chain. So what happens if we remove this krill? What happens if we remove this only keystone species of the Antarctic food web? Well, you're going to affect the seabirds, you're going to affect the penguins, we are going to affect the fish, you're going to affect the baleen whales, the seals, the squid, and even the orca that feeds on the seals or on the marine mammals. So all of this is centered in just one single species that is so important, and of course is struggling with climate change, and this ecosystem is at risk. All of these species, because of they live in the cold, they have slow recovery rates, and they're also sensitive to climate, as I already mentioned. And also there is no chance in biology, we say there are some keystone species because they cannot be replaced by other species. Like, imagine we lose one species of penguin, maybe we can, one of the other species can replace that role. But in the matter of the krill, there is no one to replace this species. So it's very low in diversity. We have very few species that so much rely on themselves to make this work. Even so, it's one of the most productive areas where a lot of whales and a lot of animals come to feed. So definitely it's fragile, but it's phenomenal, right? And of course, we are going to talk a little bit later about the human impacts that we have here. Even though we have less impact than other places, there is some influence of humans on the environment, of course. And just to show a little bit about, I've already established how special this place is, but cannot help but mention the megafauna or the key species that we can find here. So I've been doing research with Southern Ocean whales. Here you can see 6 of the baleen species that we were trying to sense and count. And here you can see that some of them are more associated with the ice than others. So the ones that are more associated with the ice is easy to explain, is the minkies. The minke whales have this snout, this very pronounced, it looks like a triangular shaped head that actually makes pokes in the ice that are later used for seals to go in and out of the water. So this species is very specialized in feeding through the layers that are under the ice that have this microalgae and this krill feeding on this microalgae. So they are going to try to scratch and collect this krill directly from the ice. Because of that, they are very difficult to measure, to count. And when we go closer to the Antarctic current, we will have species that are more subantarctic, like the right whale and the sei whale, of course. And in between those, we have the fin and the humpbacks that are a little bit more flexible and can be found in both environments. So as you can see, the whales are super tight to the movement of the ice, and this is going to be important because of the fluctuations that we can have of the ice because of climate change, right? I have to mention them. I don't study them, but we do have 4 different types of killer whales, of orcas, that surround the Antarctic waters. I was lucky enough to see 3 of those 4 types of killer whales in different sightings. So if you're passionate about photography or about orcas, definitely going to Antarctica is one of your best shots of seeing these. I don't know if we saw them in every trip, but definitely they are all around, and they are one of the things that you can come across while you're traveling to Antarctica. And of
Maru,
course, yes.
Maru, I just wanted to step in. There are some people who are experienced some difficulties with the slides. They are
Okay.
moving on our end. So if you are experiencing this issue, GoTo recommends that you sign out and then sign back in again. It should resolve the issue. We apologize for those technical difficulties for those of you who are experiencing it. Thank you,
Okay.
Maru.
Yes. I'm moving very slowly from one to the other. Maybe it's that, or it's okay. Okay. Okay, so continuing with the fauna that we can find here, we have different species of seals. Seals, of course, again, are very adapted to the ice that we have. So once you're traveling around, you can see different species. You're going to see small black dots on the ice. And once you get closer, you can realize that it's a seal that is just resting or nursing or doing something in the ice, avoiding predators maybe. So we have a wide variety. We have Antarctic fur seals, elephant seals, Weddell and Ross seals, and of course the crab eater is one of the most abundant marine mammals that we can get here. And someone mentioned penguins. Of course, penguins are also one of the main charismatic species that you can find there and that can't find in all of the places of the world. And we have 8 of the 17 different species, according to different authors. These are the species that we can find in the Antarctica. And of course, there are some rare figures like the emperor, the king, Adelis, Gentoo, and all of those. Definitely, there are some visits to the colonies that are just amazing. And yes, I just need to mention them because someone's going to say, you talked about Antarctica and whales and you didn't talk about penguins. So yeah, another amazing thing about Antarctica and something that I learned from being there is that it has such amazing landscapes. Why do I talk so much about whales? It's because that's my main research. And if you ask me, what's your favorite place in the world? I'm sorry, I'm not going to say Antarctica. I'm going to say the gray whales of Baja, right? I mean, Baja, San Ignacio Lagoon is my favorite place because we see gray whales, right? And we do see a lot of whales in the Antarctic trips. But what I can tell you is that Antarctica has this amazing combination of fauna and landscapes. So something that I saw is that every day is different. Every day has these amazing landscapes because the ice is not going to be the same the next day. You're always going to see different shapes of ice. You're going to see ice flows, icebergs, ice sheets, all of these different things that are either floating or are connected to land or is marine ice. There's just so much to see that it's just going to not be the same again the next day because of the condition of the ice that melts and changes shape. So this makes for something that I think is quite unique in the photography area or in the area of seeing some amazing wildlife together with an amazing landscape on the back. So that's about the biological part. And of course, another thing that makes Antarctica unique and that can inspire us and gives us lessons is that Antarctica is not owned by any country, even though there are some claims of these 12 original countries and then 40 different countries nowadays. After the Second World War, they signed in 1959 the Antarctic Treaty, where they decided that the continent was only going to be used for peace and research. So peaceful purposes and scientific research. This means that there's not going to be any military activity, any test of weapons, any nuclear testing, any disposals of radioactive waste, none of that. None of that is going to happen in the Antarctica, and just shows an example of international cooperation that came into place and is still in place nowadays. So everyone that is doing research needs to share this. Sometimes researchers are a little bit jealous of their data because it took them so much time to collect them. But in Antarctica, you need to forget about that. You need to have open data and cooperation. If you go there, if you have the privilege of going there to do research, it means that that research is going to be for humankind. And that's an amazing example to have in all of the research areas in the world, that everything needs to be shared. And if you have like I said, if you can go there, it means that the rest of the world is allowing you to go there because you're going to do research and you're going to share your research. So most of the studies that are done here are related to climate change, glaciology, astronomy, oceanography, and of course, biodiversity, right? So these are a little bit about the countries that have signed the Antarctic Treaty so far, and so far is working really, really well in this international cooperation. And why not think of other places to be of just for science and just for peaceful purposes, right? I want to just talk about some crazy data that I have. About the non-native population is true, but I do have to tell you, like as a curious data, that there are at least 8 people that have been born in Antarctica. This is something that the government of Argentina did in the Esperanza base, which is shown here on the map. And what you can do is that if you are a researcher, you can go and do your research, but you can go with your family for at least 1 year. So if during that year your wife is pregnant, then your child is born in Antarctica. And this happened in 1978, and then again with another girl that was born in Antarctica. I have the names here. And I think it's interesting because they don't have an Antarctic passport, of course. If they have, it's just symbolic, and they are given the Argentinian passport. But it's interesting because this is a way that the government of Argentina is trying to put more and more presence in the Antarctica by this nation, right? Argentinians have this idiosyncrasy, I don't know if yeah, where they want to be the first of everything or be the best of everything, you know. So they are doing all these type of things, and they have or we have a lot of different Argentinian bases, and also they have a church here, a primary school. So they're trying to generate a type of small community here in this particular base. So just a curious data to have there. And another thing, maybe not so funny, but talking about the no exploitation, well, it depends. I mean, there is no exploitation on land, but what happens with the waters around Antarctica? Up until 2019, there was a special permit whaling called, also known as scientific whaling, which most of the conservationist countries did not appreciate a lot. So the International Whaling Commission, they banned the hunting or the whaling of this species since 1986. However, with this special permit, you can collect whales for scientific research. And this was happening in Antarctica since 1987 up until 2019, when there was a sue by Australia. Australia took Japan to the International Court of Justice. They mentioned that the protocol that they were using was not very well written, so they wrote it again and continued to do the whaling, and then they were sued again. So this was just a way that the international countries, international community, were trying to say, we don't want this type of activities around Antarctic waters, right? What does it mean if you are collecting whales in the Antarctica for research, right? It just doesn't go with the values of Antarctica. And it was kind of like a hidden thing that was for sailing meat. Afterwards, you could find out that some of these whales were then sold in some markets, right? So yeah, there is no exploitation, but I got to say that at least 8,000 whales were caught. And then with all this international pressure, Japan realized that it was better to leave Antarctic waters, and they are now just hunting and collecting whales around their national waters, which just shows you this interesting thing about, okay, you cannot do it in a place that we call it that is for research and is for science and is for everyone, but you can go and do it in your own nation. So this message just puts more power into the message that Antarctica sends to the rest of the world, I think. And so we're reaching to the key point of the traveling to Antarctica. We have already talked about the research, the explorers, but what about tourism? And here I put, of course, a picture of the Baja gray whales. And here we have the definition that is given by the Mexican government. So ecotourism, and this is a little bit what I use as a framework for my master thesis. Ecotourism is any recreational activity that involves appreciation of knowledge of nature with an attitude and commitment to know, respect, enjoy, and actively participate in the conservation of natural and cultural resources. This is an amazing definition that we as travel companies need to follow by heart, right? It has everything. It has all the elements that we need. So what we need is these ecotourism principles, is that yes, you go to a natural destination, you try to minimize the impacts both on the environment and the local communities in the case that there is. But also you need to try to build environmental awareness and provide direct benefits to that place, to that destination for conservation. I think all of this is sounding familiar to some of you that have traveled with us, and also provide financial benefits and empowerment for local people and respect the local culture. If we talk about Antarctica, we can either say respect to the visit of the research stations, for example, because some of the places you can visit and you can actually see the bases, right? So respect to the research stations would be in the case of Antarctica. And so we have this very short video that I want to show, that this video is shown to every passenger that goes in these travels, and it's mandatory. You cannot be in your cabin when they are transmitting this. They will make you sign that you're there present watching it. So each time, even as the same happens with the drills, the security drills that they do on the ships, they will also make you be there and watch this short video that I'm going to show you.
Antarctica is one of the most beautiful, unique, and perfectly preserved regions on the planet. Its frozen landscapes are home to many amazing species, each uniquely adapted to its extraordinary climate. Largely untouched and undisturbed, special guidelines exist to ensure it continues to be a constant source of wonder and inspiration. Antarctica is the last great wilderness on Earth, governed by an international treaty that has dedicated the continent a natural reserve for peace and science. The goal of all who visit its breathtaking snowy scenes is to ensure its continued protection. Ensuring all food or personal items are secured on deck is very important with Antarctica's strong winds. Decomposition is slow in cold climates, and animals can easily be killed or caught in litter. All Antarctic species are protected. Disturbing any and all wildlife is strictly prohibited. Because of this, extreme care must be taken if seabirds or marine mammals are close to the vessel. Do not touch or feed them. These creatures show little fear of humans. Acting responsibly allows visitors to maximize their experience without disturbing wildlife. While Antarctica's harsh environment may suit its many creatures, the conditions are inhospitable and unpredictable for us. An experienced captain and crew ensure your safety and careful navigation. Remember to listen carefully to all announcements and briefings. Dressing warmly and appropriately, taking extra precaution at all times, and heeding your guide's advice about the best locations on ship will ensure you have the most rewarding experience aboard your vessel. A fully sheltered deck is the perfect place to safely take photographs of your adventure without disturbing any wildlife. Remember to stop often and reflect on the beauty around you. Respecting and appreciating your surroundings is the easiest way to ensure this experience lasts for all those who come after you. On behalf of Antarctica and IALTO, we thank you for taking the time to watch the visitor guidelines and hope you enjoy your journey.
Okay, so there are strict guidelines before, during, and after any of the landings, especially well, before they do this very throughout cleaning of the boots that you're going to use during the landings. And you have to watch these guidelines and also read about all the particular things that are going to happen on that particular landing. So I'm going to talk about the IATO in just a second, but during the landings, there is no possibility of more than 100 visitors at a time, no closer than 5 meters to the animals, and try to have everything in a place that is not going to be blown away, right? And of course, this cleanup, it comes afterwards, because these boots that you use for one landing, you're going to go to the next place, and it can get mixed up between Antarctic and subantarctic places, for example. So when I was seeing the video, it's like, why don't we act that way around any nature environment? So it was like, respect the wildlife and you get maximized experience. Don't feed them. Listen to the briefing of the guides and captains. Everything that they were saying, I don't see why it has to be particular of an Antarctic place that is so special, right? But it can be for any nature environment. There has been some addings to these guidelines because of the avian influenza that has been taking place in Antarctica, which is basically don't sit and don't leave any bags or anything on the ice. So you always need to be moving and don't be carrying anything with you on your trousers, right? Something that was particularly frustrating for me was when we were to Islas Malvinas. We went to Cliff Point, and this is no longer a place that follows the IATO guidelines, right? Because it's not Antarctic, it's just subantarctic, right? Or the South Shetland Islands, for example. So once we were out of the IATO zone, I started seeing some behaviors of the guests I wasn't an expedition guide at that moment. I was just doing my research, and so I was a guest. But I did have a colleague of mine that was so stressed trying to tell everyone to not step on the burrows, to allow the wildlife to pass by. So we started seeing some things that we were like, why? Like, just the last day, they were behaving so properly, right? And we just changed place, and it's not Antarctica anymore. And then some people were behaving very strangely for us, because it's like, this is the message that I mostly want to share. Why not treat every place as is unique, right? This place already has the same amazing wildlife, the same remoteness, the same, I mean, it has a population, of course, human population, but still it has all these amazing characteristics that just show that we could do best of us, right? So that's exactly what the message that I want to share for this webinar in particular. And to end up, if you go to the International Whaling Commission, you're going to see that Antarctica is one of other examples of the case studies where something worked so well that it's an example for the rest of the world, right? So regarding Antarctica, we have the whale watching is one of the best in the world, and it also has this platform of opportunities that is exactly what I was able to do thanks to the fact that there is tourism there, and I'll go there in just a minute. So the guidelines for whale watching are pretty much the same than any other place regarding the distances, regarding the approaching zone. So we're not going to go into that because you can easily search for that. But what does have these amazing tourism best practices that Antarctica has is that it is governed by an international association of the Antarctic tour operators. So I think that the fact that you have an international association that just gathers all of the tour operators is something that we should use as an example in other places. It doesn't have to be international. If you're in a country, but you have an association of all the tourism operators, that they are going to rely on those to get the guidelines, right? And also is this amazing program of Antarctic ambassadors that just goes with this ecotourism principle that I was telling you about, when you can participate in conservation and actively participate by donating money or by researching more, telling others, wherever you can do in your place. There is this amazing program that they have and that anyone can join. And besides doing the best practices possible, they also allow researchers like me or other colleagues to go to these vessels and do research. So the research that we were doing, it actually has to do with another part that I didn't want to leave you with the idea that is also perfect, which is the fishing part, right? So remember that we said that in Antarctica there is no exploitation, but it only applies, I think, to land, because we already seen one case where there was whaling. Even though it was as a scientific purpose, there still was a harvesting of whales in the Antarctica. And there's also krill fishing. This krill fishing is regulated very strictly by the Commission for Conservation of Antarctic Marine Living Resources, which is also an international institute that it provides the amount of krill that can be fished. I already talked a little bit about this in my last webinar, polar adaptations. But if you remember, it was a very small quota that they allow each year, which is 620,000 tons, which sounds like a lot, but if you consider that krill is 380 million tons, it's just a very, very small fraction. However, this fraction is taken in this green area mostly, which is the Southwest Atlantic and the area 48 around the Western Antarctic Peninsula. So it's getting more and more concentrated. And this year was the first year that they harvested everything in very short period of time, which kind of brings the question of how sustainable is that really, and how it might affected the whales and the predators that were fishing on that same time in that particular area. So if you do it in just a short amount of time, I think we have to question if this is really something good that is going on, right? So if you go to the website, you see that it's this eco-harvesting method. But once you start digging in a little bit more and talk to colleagues that are doing this research, some gray areas start to arise. And it's normal because this number that they are collecting is so outdated. Imagine what's the influence of the krill on the whales if we don't even know how many whales there are after the whaling era. We cannot say how this krill fishery is affecting. And that's where our research came in. So basically, we were trying to estimate the baleen whale abundance in the Southern Ocean, which is so big. However, thanks to the tourism, we were able to go on multiple legs, multiple trips, and we were able to collect a lot of data that wouldn't have been possible if it weren't for tourism and tourist vessels as platforms of opportunity. So just to show you a little bit about this work, I think with this work, it's not just me, of course, there were plenty of marine mammal observers. I actually have the numbers here. 50 voyages in total. I was only in 5 of those. 8 different vessels from 4 different operators through 4 seasons, right? And here you can see a little bit about the data. We collected so much data, a lot of survey effort, around more than 50,000 kilometers. It's just crazy. And 2,000 marine mammal sightings from all the different seas around the Antarctica and around especially the Antarctic Peninsula, which was the place that we were mostly interested because of the krill fishing. And so with this shows you an example of how we can partner research with tourism and fulfill these ecotourism principles that I was mentioning before. So I think this is my way of saying thank you, because it would not be possible to do this research and to continue to keep Antarctica as pristine. So I stole this phrase that I found on internet that I really like. Antarctica shows us what's possible. It's a continent protected for peace, science, and respect. The challenge for us as travelers is this: to bring that Antarctic spirit with us everywhere, because every place we visit deserves to be treated as if it were Antarctica. So for me, the message is think about, when you think about Antarctica, move slower, ask more questions, and leave less behind. And with that, I want to thank you for your attention and hope you have some questions.
All right, thank you, Maru. So I would like to remind everyone that if you do have questions, you can submit them via the question field in your control panel. Remember, that's in the upper right-hand corner. Go ahead and click on that and send us some of your questions. I do apologize for those of you who had some technical difficulties. We will look into why some of those slides weren't moving. I have no explanation, so I apologize for that. So does what is Japan's stance on whales now, even though they've withdrawn from the treaty?
Well, basically, as I mentioned, they still have this culture where they consider whales as part of their resources. They consider it the same as any other marine resource. So what they did is they pulled out from Antarctica because of international pressure, but they are doing some whaling in their national waters. So that's how they stand so far. Yes, I think it's a very complex problem, or I don't even know if to say problem, because we need also to respect other views and other cultures, and it's hard for me to say it when I am a whale researcher. So it depends on how you ask me. If you ask me personally, or if you ask me as a biologist, I will give you a different answer, because if something is sustainable, then maybe you can do it. That's what a biologist would say. But of course, I have a different opinion in my personal, right? Um, so yeah, so far what I can say is that it's, for me, it's good that international pressure came to place, because it really looked like what they were doing was not research, right? Or even if it is research, there are some other ways of research where you don't have to kill the species that you're studying to collect even more data than the one that they were presenting, right? Because they were presenting some data on whales. But definitely there are other methods that we can use nowadays that gives us much more. Even in Mexico, there is tons and tons of research on whales with far less budget and far less invasive methods. So yeah, that's my answer.
Are they using, excuse me, are they using drones to obtain data on whales and krill, perhaps maybe from the tourist vessels?
Definitely, you need to have a permit to use drones in Antarctica, but if you do have a research permit, they are collecting with drones, and there are some amazing research, even not only in Antarctica, but in the Arctic. I have seen some amazing footage of this, how do you say in English, this whale, bowhead whale, which goes really deep in the pack ice, and only with drones you can actually reach them and see what they're doing. And so in Antarctica, it's the same. If you want to go deeper in the packed ice, one amazing tool is drones. And there is even this tool that is called the Snotbot. Maybe you have seen some videos, or you can search for them, because these are collecting the whale's spout. So the drone goes very close to the whale, and when the whale comes out to breathe, it just breathes on the Petri glass that is hooked on the drone, and it's just collecting the microbiota of the whale to research for hormones and for bacteria and for many interesting things. So definitely the new technologies are helping us with these difficult questions to tackle in Antarctic waters. Mhm.
Great. Well, that's fascinating. Thank you for talking about that. Is there any issue with the bird flu in Antarctica?
There was some cases, yes, and I'm not sure what's going on today, like 2025, but in the last years there has been a lot of different problems concerning the avian flu, and it has even affected some penguin colonies. So definitely something that we need to look out, and that it just shows us that it's not as isolated as one may think. Everything can reach. Even so, I didn't find, there was this research article that I couldn't find, that it actually shows that the researchers, the scientists, bring more, have less these strict guidelines. So they are the ones that bring these foreign species. I'm not saying that they brought the avian flu, but for other species, they were bringing more invasive species in their shoes, because they didn't have this strict guidelines. So it's not even tourism the worst scenario with these biological invasions. So that paper, that research, was a sign of warning for all of us to really be mindful of our travels to Antarctica. And I think we still need to be very, very cautious, and double the regulations and double the strict guidelines, because it's such a fragile environment, right? So yeah.
So can we visit Antarctica with NatHab?
Actually, yes. There is some trips that you can search in our website. It's sailing to Antarctica. You will have some sailing experts over there, because you can actually go by sailboat, and also I think there is one trip that you can fly to the sailboat, to a place where the sailboat will be, and you don't have to cross the Drake Passage in a sailboat, which kind of sounds difficult. Of course, whenever you cross with a sailboat, you need to find that perfect weather window. Otherwise, you don't cross in a sailboat the Drake Passage in bad weather. No. But definitely, and I think you can write emails, and that will help. That will help you to choose your best trip.
Gotcha. Can you talk about what the temperatures will be outside when I'm on the deck during the day?
Oh, I don't know in Fahrenheit, but definitely in the summer you can get 0 Celsius, 2 degrees Celsius. In a very, very warm day, I have seen 7 degrees Celsius, but it can go really low, really fast with the wind chill. So yeah, but they give you all the best equipment to 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 cope with that.
Great. Gotcha. Good to know. Well, I can see by your screen that your battery is running a little low there.
Yes, sorry,
So
I thought
no,
I was plugged in. I'm sorry.
not to worry, not to worry. Unfortunately, we are just about out of time. So I'm going to throw it back to you for any closing comments you may have for us, Maru.
Okay, well, thank you for listening. Sorry about the technical, we'll get better. And I do have another webinar on the 10th, where I'm going to be talking about my experience in a scientific base. So if you want to reach out with some questions that I can prepare for you, wherever you have in mind about that, would be great. And I hope that you got inspired to treat every place that you visit as if it were Antarctica. So thank you.
Maru, thank you so much for taking the time to present for us today. And well, I'd like to thank everyone who joined us today. So if you are interested in information on how you can travel to Antarctica with NatHab, please give us a call at 800-543-8917, or send us an email at info@nathab.com. Our adventure specialists are happy to help you out. Join us tomorrow for our next daily dose of nature. You can check out this week's lineup, including registration links, on our website at nathab.com/webinars. We did record today's presentation, and the replay will be available on our website soon. With that, I will conclude today's webinar. So long, everybody. We will see you next time.